Vizlib.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Appy Hour. We're doing Vizzes of the Month, where we show some good, some bad charts and talk about it. And I'm joined with the entire Industry Solutions team, Joe, Cody, and Emily. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Hey. Do you guys have anything good to drink today? I know Joe mentioned my favorite drink, and I cannot wait to see what flavor he chose.
Well, without further ado, yeah, I hit the kombucha aisle. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just picked the flavor that I think I might like the best, raspberry, and it's not some really crazy one. There was some very unique, like elderberry, jasmine. I'm like, I don't think I want. This smells like perfume. I'm just gonna try a raspberry one. So I'm gonna try this today.
That one sounds good. Raspberry is always good. I like to go for, I think it's because I'm very advanced in my kombucha phase, that I always go for the weirdest ingredients, like chili mango. I'll take that any day.
Can't do it.
I've got something super interesting. It's German, and I don't know if this is a German thing or if it's just what they sell close to me, but it's a Club Mate. It says Club Mate. So it's mate, I think, is like a super caffeinated tea. And they mixed, I think this is grape juice in it, but it's bright red. I don't know why it's bright red, but it's really good and it's caffeinated, which I love.
Better.
How late are you going to be up tonight, Jane?
Yeah, it's too late. I'm like buzzing already.
Well, Joe, I almost went with raspberry as well, but I opted for the peach honey seltzer today.
Peach, yeah. I was gonna do that too. I saw a peach one. I'm like, I don't know. I think the kombucha, like fizziness or the fermentation, might take over the peach and then ruin peach for me for the rest of my life. So I'll stick with this one.
And for me, I just have plain old coffee today. My afternoon before I hit my 1:30 wall coffee.
You have like a set time that you have. Okay, this is cup number 4, like Jonathan does.
It depends on how many rabbit holes you send me on beforehand.
Yeah, I apologize.
It's usually 1 in the morning, 1 in the early afternoon to get me through the rest of the day.
I have a cutoff time, no caffeine afternoon. But luckily for me, it's only 10 o'clock here, 10 a.m. So.
Yeah, this is the widest we've been on time zone differences for the team, right? From all the way from Berlin to Seattle, Washington area.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Oh, we're in 4 because I'm Central Time Zone now too. So I don't know how we're going to schedule meetings. We're going to mess them up. I'm pretty sure. I'm just going to say, look at your calendar, see if it fits. I'm not doing the translation.
So I'll have more of these and I'll be up all night. Don't worry.
Yeah,
guys.
there you go. You just match Eastern Time Zone.
Yeah, just every time zone. We've got Joe and Joachim. They said hi. Hey guys.
Oh, nice. Hi. So what do we have in store today, Jane?
Okay, so I'm going to show you my first visualization. This one I cannot read at all. I don't understand what it's saying. And here it is. Can you guys see that okay? Let me zoom in a bit more. So they're plotting sunset and sunrise time for Boston. But they've gone with this.
Weird.
And I can't really tell what it means.
I feel like we've seen one like this before. Like it's like it almost looks like a tornado if they just kept drawing it, right? And it goes back on itself.
But I'm not getting anything from this.
So I'm assuming, so I actually think this is one of those, like we're trying to make it more than it actually is type of thing. Because I'm assuming each dot is a day, right? That would make sense, I think. I think there were just so many days plotted that it just made a random. So I don't think the design itself is trying to tell us really anything. I just think that's just how the data fell, really.
Yeah. I think it pretty clearly shows us the daylight savings, the big jump.
Yeah.
I would love
Right over
to.
here.
I would love to
That's
see maybe like
interesting.
a colored dot that said maybe the last day before and the first day after daylight savings to let you know. Like obviously there's a drop
Yeah.
by a full hour there by the two different sections, but like which dot was that last day before time changed and where does it go type of thing.
Interesting. Now that you talk about colors, I actually think maybe if they colored by like daylight savings versus non-daylight savings, that might be good. Or if they did like each month was a different color, so maybe you can see the change in like spring and winter and the sunrise and sunset times. But yeah, I looked at this and I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
I think like it might be interesting to be able to interact with it too, just to see like, oh, the day is the same length of time on these 2 days out of the whole year, like something interesting like that. But yeah, the information is just, it's too condensed to really be of any meaning right now.
Agreed.
Yeah, or you could map it with like seasonal depression, and now that we're getting into springtime, it's lighter, there's more light, all that stuff, and see, okay, people actually feel better when we're on this arc of it.
I love that.
Because yeah, I was like, what did they do wrong? And then it obviously makes sense that there's a daylight savings time change there. But I've seen this actual in a big tunnel that my former employer had. This was back before Qlik. And they had a dot, a big transparent dot on a window, and it would shine down on this drawing on the wall and would tell you what part of the year it was. And so the sun would track in different times in different parts of the year and narrow in on which month and day it was. It was actually kind of cool, and it followed this, pattern. But they didn't do daylight savings. It's impossible to do because it's a concept that the government made up, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. I would like to see it though. Yeah, interactively. Oh, Jane, are you able to zoom in a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, that's better.
How's that?
Nice.
And this was in your favorite subreddit, I imagine, or one of your favorite. Data is beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, I went off script for this. I'm like, I know Jane's going to pick the good ones out of here, so I'm going to go somewhere else. Spend money.
Sorry. Yeah,
And then I guessed Emily was a visual capitalist. So
I didn't pick any visual capitalists today.
Well, okay. We should really arrange these things then, because maybe we somehow stumbled upon the same ones. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's head on to. We can start with Joe and see what he has, and see if Emily has any of the same ones.
Let me know, because I'm on one screen, when you can see how fast is the LA Fire Department where you live. If you want to bring it onto the screen, Jane.
Yeah, okay. It's up.
Okay. I can zoom in as well. Maybe not that far.
Whoop.
A little touchy. Geospatial hexagons. I kind of like this style. And I might click around here so you guys can see, but it's basically green. Green is good. Yeah. 911 calls, the fire department's going to get to you super fast, and there's pockets. It must be, you have to presume that's where the fire departments are actually stationed. And then 10 minutes away. And it says national standards, most responses should be under 6 minutes. So you really don't want to be pink or red at all. You want to be in the green. So there's some big areas here that would be really bad if you called 911 and needed somebody.
Is 10 minutes? In minutes?
Yeah, it's in minutes.
Okay.
So it seems like that's still just crazy fast. But
yeah,
when you have something like this, I like this interaction with the map. So these are cardiac arrest times. So somebody calls, the first responder wants to get to somebody as quickly as possible if you're having a heart attack, to resuscitate if necessary, all that good stuff. And there's some definite areas, right, where there's disparities, which could mean life or death in those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be here in like West Hollywood. And then overall volume, like where do most of the calls come in? This is very clear to me. Like, okay, well, this is the concentration of where people are. But it got really interesting when I started looking at the neighborhood stuff. So overall times, cardiac arrest times, like there's something up with this neighborhood. They need to have maybe a fire department or first responder. Like this is where you're going to build next. It's telling you very clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, and they have this. I didn't look at that. So this is where all the fire stations are. Notice there's nothing in this this particular Bel Air neighborhood. Oh, Bel Air.
Interesting.
Is that where
Isn't
Will
that
Smith went?
yeah.
And he was on the show, yeah. That's funny. So yeah, I saw this and I'm thinking like, it was kind of spring-like. I don't know if we were going for a theme, but I was like, greens and reds has somehow jumped out. And I was like, ooh, I like this one. It's a map. But I know, Cody, you probably have issues with this as it's a map.
I'm always not a big fan of maps, but I do like the fire station plots on there. Because before you click that on, we were making the assumption that anything green was close to a fire station. Obviously, with that on, it confirms that. No,
Pretty much. There's still this area here for some reason, and I don't know. I've been to LA only a few times, and I know the geography is weird. There's some where like you're on this street, and then what you assume is like, oh, that's just one street over, is up on a ledge, like a big. It's such a huge geographical difference, and it's not like you can just jump over the streets.
Yeah.
So it could be like there's a big fault here or something.
Yeah, I would say like 90% of the time, all those hexagon dots, probably from a 2 to 3 area around the fire department, is green. But then in there, you have those 3 or 4 dots where there is no green within 6 or 7 areas. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, that's nice. As you hover over, kind of like a viz tip, in that box along the left-hand side, it'll tell you like what's the average response time, dispatch, how many responses there were. So there's a little bit of that. And maybe if there's only 5 in this case, it could be skewed. But also it doesn't have anything about like the size of the department, how many volunteers or full-time staff they have, other things that, you'd want to ask the next level question. But I thought it was actually pretty decent use of a map.
Yeah.
My question when I saw this was, what value is the grid? So like when you're looking at a map, why would you break this up into hexagons? And like, why is that the grid shape that they chose? It's just like, to me, if they say grid, I'm thinking like, okay, like a square or rectangle that's more sensible for a map. The hexagon shape is kind of confusing to me. But then when you put it into neighborhoods, that seemed more meaningful. So just like calling out each of the neighborhoods and figuring out kind of where they sit.
Between the two, like as they stay zoomed in, you can make inferences here and think, oh, there's a station here, so everybody in here is good, but it's all geography based. So what if you live on this side of the neighborhood and you have a call? Now you have this station, you might actually be close to this one.
Yeah.
So by going into those grids, you can see that there's maybe issues between these two neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And we use this a lot actually years ago with the Ebola outbreaks to try to figure out where the outbreaks were occurring. And it wasn't in the center of like a district. It actually was along the edges by rivers and where people were congregated. So they started using these hexagons to do that type of work too. And just try to split it up into smaller chunks that may represent a population better.
Yep. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's fun. I like the map stuff. I wish we did a bit more with that.
We have Joe. He's actually saying, take a look at this interactive map of Tampa, which is in your neck of the woods.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
anymore.
Can I copy that maybe? Or Jane, if you want to open it up, I'm not sure I can click on that. If there's a way to get to it. Every time I click on something in StreamYard, it's just like show it or not. I can't copy it. But it's in the LinkedIn if somebody has that one open.
Yep. Okay.
I'll stop sharing there. Yeah, this is the first time we've had this many screens, I think, shared at once. So it's getting a little complicated.
So these are all flood zones.
I know this quite well because our insurance rates went up crazy amounts in the last year. And FEMA said, oh, you're in like a super dense or super high risk flood zone. There's no way. Every time it rains, it goes into other people's driveways, but it's just based on your neighborhood again. I'm like, no, I wish it was like by house. It's just flood zones. Yeah, Florida's got all kinds of fun issues. Like the Everglades catch on fire, like the actual mud
What?
in the Everglades. Yeah. I always thought like fires were in like California, Washington, Canada, up there. Florida's having fires as well because it gets to be a drought. And
Now I'm
then
just
somehow the mud and stuff catches on fire. It's ridiculous.
That's so
Jane, I'm really
interesting.
liking how this legend is updating as you're zooming on the
Yeah.
map. So the scale is changing
It
as you've zoomed out.
That's a good one, Joe.
To my neck of the woods. Yeah, this is interesting. Huh, okay. And
I wish the scale was like one color needs to be super different or a whole band underneath the sea level, right? So you could quickly see like New Orleans. Because I can't tell the difference between 3 feet and maybe -3 feet. And that's probably a bad area to be in.
oh yeah,
Like
like this
zone, right?
This
Is
area.
that just the deepest blue?
Yeah. Whew.
I don't know if that, oh, there we go. Gets into the black. So maybe it's as close as you can get.
And it updated, so it went down to -7 feet. Okay.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, I like that.
What's he saying? It's cool to maneuver the map, zoom in and out, see all the flood areas. Oh, Johan said hexagons often used in Qlik geoanalytics. It might have to do with polygons, streets in the areas. If you have squares, the diagonal length is longer. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. So it's almost like putting a dot, but you actually can get the connection between every region.
Nice. Who's got Jane, did you have another one or do you want to?
I'm passing it on to Emily.
Emily's next.
All right. Do you guys want to see my bad ones or good ones? Let's do my series with bad ones. Okay. So I was thinking springtime, and I'm always hearing like April showers bring me flowers. So I did the famous look at ways that our news channels will visualize rain data or like tell you what the chance of rain is going to be. So I found various, and I have 3 different charts to show you guys, and I just think they're hysterical of ways that like they've shown precipitation outlooks. So this chart shows us a very random. I don't understand what scale they're using here on the left-hand side. Dry to widespread rain. And then the bar is representing the percent chance of rain. And then they've got the days of the week as your other dimension. I was baffled by just like the combination of using a measure and a dimension on like to represent the bar lengths. It was just very confusing. And I think they're actually, go ahead.
Are they stacked? Like, so you go from isolated to spotty to scattered? Can you be spotty and also like widespread at the same time, or
I don't know.
Or is it always stacked?
It's confusing to me. It's almost like, to me, if I was reading this, I would think, okay, on Saturday we're gonna have spotty, and it's a 30% chance of spotty rain. Then on Monday we're gonna have a 40% chance of almost scattered rain. Like, how meaningful is that to me? I'm not sure. So I thought this one was interesting. I like strongly despised how they use the percentages as like the labels on this as well, because you see how they've almost distorted it into you thinking that the bar length represents the percent chance of rain, but they're really saying the bar length represents
The
type. And I think they're saying the color is the percent chance. So they're like, the darker the color, the higher percent chance.
I wish they would have one day that was, like 30% and widespread, and then then we'll know what is what. And there's no legend here, so there's no way of knowing.
Very confusing.
Yeah, because you could read it a couple ways. It's like, is it, so look at the 30% in spotted. Is it a 30% chance of rain, which makes it spotty? Or is it spotty and there's a 30% chance it will be spotty? So if that was up to widespread, but 30%, we know it would be a 30% chance of widespread. Right now, we don't really know. Is it 30% chance of rain, which makes it that, or is it that, which makes it the percent? So, yeah, using the percent as a label kind of throws you off.
Yes. All right. I have two that go along with this.
Okay.
Same
perfect.
idea here. I'll zoom in on this one.
I will say this is why I don't tend to watch the news to catch the weather. I just look on an app on my phone and I pick the right app because I can trust it and I understand what it's saying.
I'm with you there, Joe. So this one, same idea of like using your axes to represent like two different dimensions, and then like all of a sudden they just throw in AM and late onto the labels.
Oh, and then the others is just the whole day?
I don't know.
Could be, yeah.
And then in this case, widespread is associated with a percentage. So on the other one, it seemed disconnected. Their like labels and their percentages seemed disconnected, and we were interpreting them that way. But in this one, it seems like they're linking percent chance with a name. So who knows?
Can you go back to
is
the
it
other
both the
one?
same town too? Is this like Seattle weather?
These are random.
It wouldn't be, because it would be like 99.
Right. But do you notice how they're not even using the same terms? The other one has likely and this one doesn't. So I guess these aren't weather terms. They're just this specific news's terms.
Yep.
Terms.
Very subjective.
I hope they understand more about the weather. I know that they do. My best friend actually was a meteorologist, broadcast meteorologist for years. So
Cool.
he even catches that I'm talking about this and then I use an app and don't watch it. He would get mad. But it's a rabbit. Like you talk about rabbit holes, Cody. Like talk to a meteorologist about the weather. You like catch yourself. Like, oh, how's the weather out there today? And like, oh no, I should not have asked that question. Here we go.
No, actually, the chart before, like, I think the chart would be, if you took off the AM and late, I think the chart would be fine. The AM and late definitely throw you off. I think this is one of those examples that like a supplemental chart or a legend would help here.
Or when it comes to the weather, I just think no chart is helpful. I just expect words to be thrown at me. Like rain, 80%. Done.
Yeah, I've always been interested in the fact that weather seems to almost always be presented on a line or a bar chart. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to visualize, particularly rain. Like, I don't know that I think of rain as bar charts. I was going to also mention that, like, on this one, from like a visualization best practices standpoint, I find that there's a lot of clutter. So just to like bring in some of the things that we've talked about before on Appy Hour. I mean, if you look at like the background, they've added in these color bands, which are a little bit pointless when you see how like wide each of those chunks are. It's very obvious which one you're in. So the color bands are not really helpful. They're more distracting, and they just add like a lot of chaos. And then you've added this like shine to your bars, putting this highlight down the center. Very distracting as well. And like overall, I think you could really simplify the chart and make it a lot more meaningful and less cluttered. Yeah.
And it's all a prediction too. So feel like the further out you get, the less likely that thing is to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the next day it should be like with 90% certainty. This is another one.
What do you guys think of this? Chance of rain in the next 12 hours.
I like that one. This almost looks like the apps that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this kind of says app. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Joe. This one's nice.
I think the only thing for me on this one is there's too many redundant labels. That's the only thing I would really change about it. It's a little bit cluttered with all the redundancy of the labels because they're very, they're only using 20, 30, 40, 50. They're not like 51% chance or anything like that. So to me, having a label for every bar is a little too much for 12 bars. But other than that, I think that this one's probably the best one of all
Yeah.
of them we've seen.
Yeah.
Weather channels, listen up.
Yep.
Follow this. Don't
Let us help you with your data sources. All right, I'll save my really cool one for after when we cycle back around. So Cody, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, I sent mine over to Jane because
Yes.
mine, for some reason, weren't displaying.
Let me show my screen. Okay.
Okay. So this one is a handmade chart. And I actually like this. So these are the blooming dates. I can't read what that other word is, but blooming dates of flowers by month here. And each individual square is the week in each month. So on the left, like, I know it's hard, but like tulips and roses are in there somewhere. So each month is color coded, and then it's kind of like I guess a glorified heat map at this point. And each square circled in or colored in is the week in the month that those respected flowers bloom.
Oh.
So the fact that I like this one because the fact that someone did this by hand was pretty cool. It's very neat. And I can tell, exactly if I'm looking down at my favorite flower, I can easily follow which month, which weeks of the month easily bloom. So I actually like this one. It's not often that I bring in visuals that I like, but this one actually makes pretty good sense. I think I wouldn't change too much about this one.
Is it a heat chart? It could be a heat map or grid chart or a Gantt, right? Could we do this with the Gantt
the
chart?
flow of it from left to right reminds me of like task in a Gantt chart almost.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's calendar based, but I would think more heat map just because you've broken out each month as like an individual unit and you colored it by month and you kind of given the months a little bit of meaning behind them or something.
What are the lines for?
The green ones.
Yeah.
I think they're just to show separation.
Yeah.
I don't think they mean anything.
And I like that they alternated the color on that too, just so you could like easily read across. It helps for that flow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, at first I was like, get rid of those, whatever the green tube things are. But if you're trying to read across, yeah, you could have your ruler on it because it's handmade. But maybe if you were to highlight it or just hover over it, would highlight the whole line and show you where it's at. If this were to be interactive, who's volunteering to map this into data?
I think Johan already does this in his free time from his free time.
He's already on
his
it.
name. It's going to be done tomorrow. Yeah.
It's going to be done by the end of the show. Joe actually asked a question. He said, since we're looking at charts and maps, what do you guys think / feel in regards to Zillow.com, not a sponsor, when you look for a dwelling? I'm not on Zillow too often, but I feel like it's similar to Airbnb, right? Where you can zoom out and look at prices and...
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the charts so much. I mean, we bought a house, and Emily, you were looking at a house most recently too, right? Like, I don't know if that was on Zillow, but we definitely use that to dream and look through things. What I wanted to do was scrape the Zillow website and throw it all into a Qlik app and then have like, oh, how many bedrooms and bathrooms and which one has a garage, how many, and make my own kind of like filters into Zillow. But the charts, I think, were only when you get into a certain house, then you can see different things. And it was like, how does this house rank in comparison to others? Its price range, price per square foot. I don't know if we have an example of it, but I don't really use it for the charts so much. It's just like, oh, this is where we are dreaming about going. It could be
I
better.
agree, Joe. I think that Zillow, I'll say they do a good job of controlling their data. So they only give you as much as they want you to have. Whereas I would love like you to scrape the website and be able to look at it on more aggregate levels and compare and contrast. But like if you're just looking at like a random, I think I'm looking at a house in Vancouver. So that's interesting. But there's usually minimal charts. I think the one that I find the most interesting is the like market value over time chart.
The prediction of the value of the house.
Price and tax history.
It's somewhere in there. Airbnb does it right and uses the predictive side to say, based on when you're looking at it, this cost may go up. You should book now. And we've used that to make determinations.
I learned something that Airbnb actually, their filter for prices with the bar charts is, I think they were the first ones to do it, which is really interesting because I'm seeing it in a lot of places. And I think Zillow has it, but yeah, it's a little.
Yeah, I like open source some of their software, and I think some of it was visualization stuff. So did Uber and Lyft with the mapping, with the geomap stuff. That chart right there, like where it's how much your mortgage is going to be. Basically, that's what we're looking at. Like, oh no, we got it at the wrong time.
I feel like people look at these charts and they get scared. Like, oh, the price of this house has gone up so much in whatever time frame it is seen, and because this is not a zero axis scale, like Zillow kind of blows that up out of proportion for you. And so you see, oh, this big increase. And then as a buyer, I'm like, is it going to keep increasing that way? It kind of looks like it's starting to level off. Like, but then when you look at it on the grand scheme of things, okay, let's temper that a little bit and understand, like, what does that mean? So to me, like, there's a lot of context missing from these charts. And I think that they're more, I don't know, I think they're more geared towards the seller than the buyer, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't think of a time when I ever looked at it and go, oh, I feel good about this. It always makes me feel bad that I should have bought in like 2005 or something ridiculous when it was like under $60,000 and now it's $1 million home or something crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't elicit good thoughts or good feelings as a buyer.
The only other thing I would say is that it's like always the red dot. Like there's nothing helpful or visual about their map. Mm-hmm. Like, why can't it be colored by price or anything like that's helpful for me? Or like if I choose the metric, like I want to see ones that are like in really good school districts. So like show me the best school rating as like the green ones, and then, you know, the white ones are ones that are in poorer school districts or something. Like being able to change the visual look of the map would be really impactful to me on Zillow. Yeah,
coming from healthcare too, this to me looks like measles and mumps outbreaks in the country. Like it doesn't. It's also another one. They can definitely stand to use like Qlik geoanalytics on it, and have multiple layers, like you're saying, of, well, change that hex grid behind the scenes to, level of education, these types of things, these other demographics data that you may want to see where the house is located.
Yeah.
We have a good suggestion from Leslie, who said they should also show the market trends for comparison when you show the price trends.
Yeah.
And Johan said, good job. Good point, Emily. And not having a zero for the axes. And Joe also asked a question, Zillow and Airbnb will differ as one site are for rental / buying to own, whereas Airbnb is only for rentals, right? Yeah, I think Airbnb is just not even rentals, like short-term
yeah.
vacation homes.
Yeah. And I think from like a data perspective, like people who are on Airbnb aren't really looking at like pricing or like comparing as much as like people who are buying a house, they're like doing a lot of research, or if they're going to be like renting a house for a long time, they're trying to do a lot of research and compare their options. And Zillow doesn't really let you do that well. Like there's no like select these 3 homes and compare them side by side. Like, but and on Airbnb, they're like, oh, I want to find like the one that has a hot tub.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like more short term because you know when you're going to want to. So you don't really have a choice in when you go. It's just where. And even usually that's restricted.
What's that? I'm Dutch, so even Airbnb should be cheap. That's that phrase, right? I'm going Dutch. Right. Let's see. Jane, you have another one? Are we back to you now?
Oh, yes.
Cody, that was a cool one. I like those hand-drawn ones.
Yeah, that was
The
pretty
time
cool.
and attention they put into it. The funny part is, I think probably hand sketch that faster than you could generate the data and make an app for it.
Yeah.
Most of the data side is just a slug.
Okay. I think this is a good visualization and it's informative. This is on Cool Guides. I found this on Cool Guides. But informative, I think if they had placed people based on how far you can be to the car, this would be the perfect representation of visibility. No.
No, I don't like this one at all.
Really? I think if they just made a car here and then the light just shined, the whole way, and you just
If it was one,
If it was
there
one
was just
line.
one, and then you can just see people and like how far away they are from each other, because like 50 feet to 0 and like 79 feet, they have the same distance. But I think if they placed the distance respectively, I think this would be an awesome chart. And I think we could do this.
I think so. I remember seeing something about this. Like, why are the bikers like gigantic compared to the car? That's just bad. And the further away you are, you should be a little bit smaller too. But yeah, you would have to scroll horizontally to see it. Might actually be a better visual too. Like you want to be this one that's far out there and wear the bright green.
Yeah.
I don't get
hilariously,
the
like
comment
I can
about
see the black one the better, even though it's supposed to be invisible.
Yeah, the color is really throwing me off.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the color is really, or the color is just given to show that it's a different length. They actually mean anything?
Oh no, sorry.
It's the shirt color or something you wear.
It's the what you have to wear to be visible to a car at night.
Right, that makes sense. All right. Yeah, I think this goes back to the whole starting at a 0 axis type of thing, like we said before.
Yeah.
We don't know, like Jane, to your point, from a car to 55 feet, it's the same distance from the car to 180 feet. There's no scale and stuff like that. So yeah, like you said, all in one strip with the different distances actually being the scale distances would really help.
Yeah, I think we could make this a lot better. I could totally see this being if we just made this on a scatter plot in Vizlib, and then maybe we could place the icon as a bike, and then each person can be colored. Each color can be colored. Yeah.
Or what if it's like design your bike and your outfit, and so it will place you based on what you pick. Oh, you want to wear all black clothing with no reflective tape? You're going to get hit really fast. And if you wear green and you have reflective tape and you got those things in your spokes that light up, you stand a better chance you're way out there. And it could be like a sliding scale, basically. It would be a fun interactive thing.
Yeah, I'll do it. That sounds like fun.
All right.
Next Appy Hour.
Look at what I did.
It's a cool education tool, right? Then for kids to play around, design your biker, and then, this is what I want to wear.
And
Interesting safety.
it reminded me of spring because I saw a funny, it was like a meme, and it said like, spring's here, you know, the worst things are coming out, and it was 3 pictures of mosquitoes and then one of people biking on the road, like like sport biking on a road. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I've got one more that's kind of similar, if you guys want to see it. This
go
one
ahead.
I also have a hard time reading, but visually it looks really nice. So it's visible wavelengths
Oh,
on
you
the
have to zoom in on that one.
magnetic scale. So this is kind of the gist of it, but let me zoom in so you guys can read better. Oh. So it says like 1 picometer, 1 nanometer. So I don't really understand what this is for and what each bar stands for, but I thought it looked really cool. It kind of says you can only see very little compared to a wavelength, but I don't know what the bars are for. That doesn't make too much sense to me.
They don't match the actual like wavelengths.
Yeah, I don't. Again,
I mean, they say what it is, but it's interesting. We can only see that stuff.
It's interesting that they took up 7 bars in that big of a chart to only prove a point that only that portion is visible. Like, if I would have expected to have those 3 colors of visible possibly in different heights on each bar, looking at this, not just on one bar in one section. So the nanometer, you can see it up here, the micrometer down here, and have it on each section. I thought maybe...
Yeah, but I think that like scientifically you can only see these.
Yeah, I'd almost want it to like call out some really common ones, like here's microwaves, here's sonar or something weird.
I was going to say adding some
what
context would be helpful in this one.
Yeah.
What's a gigameter?
It's very scientific right now. And so without any like more visual cues to tell us like what these each mean, having some context, like Joe was saying, to give us some clues as to like where other things that we can relate to are would be super helpful. Like where's an X-ray and like microwave and that kind of thing. I conversely, Cody, actually like that they took up that much space to show just those 3 in color, because to me, this reminds me of a waffle chart where like your point, like you're making your point very clear and known because of the drastic difference between the colored and the not colored, or the, you know, whatever. It's like kind of showing progress, but without showing progress. I think that like icons or waffle charts, this is the most similar I can see to that.
But yeah, isn't this it looks nice, doesn't it? If somebody did, I don't know, physics, I feel like this on a wall would be really cool.
Yeah, like a big poster I could see somebody wearing as a t-shirt, like you can only see these ones.
Yeah.
I don't know how you use it though.
Yeah, Johan says the not colored say a lot about the colored ones. Agreed. And it's barely readable. Yeah, it's very small. I think that's also a problem. You have to zoom in a lot to see the micro something.
I think if they had just given us some cues as to like, is a nanometer longer or shorter than a gigameter, like that would have been really helpful for me. Neat. Very interesting, Jane.
Right. Isn't this pretty?
Yeah.
And do you guys want to keep going with mine? I've got one last one. And it looks cool, hard to read. Emily, I think you're going to hate this one.
Yeah, let's
I think
show
you'll
it.
say, looks cool, makes no sense. It's this.
Oh.
It's worse than a pie chart. It's worse than a Meko chart, because you can't tell how big each block is. Like
Can you let us read the title? Like what is it? Of all of you? Huh.
So it's basically what the web is. That is
Very geometric.
So there's more websites that are .tokyo than anything else.
But these are all only cities. Top geo / NGTLDs.
Top level domains. Yeah.
And
Okay.
4 of the top 10, what?
Are from
Oh.
Germany. I picked this because it said Germany in it. I was like, cool. Relevant.
I mean,
I didn't even know these existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll say I don't hate it, Jane, because I think that they did a really good job of being intentional about the labeling and coloring. The fact that like the Germany ones are split up is confusing to me, or like the purple ones are split. Like I'm just not quite understanding their logic behind that. But the fact that they're grouping them and they're calling things out with a highlight, that type of guided analysis is really helpful.
That's good. I think again, looks super cool. Would be great on a poster, but I think if they took away the labels, it would be very confusing.
Why a triangle?
Yeah. I don't know. Is that a web thing?
I like the weird design. There's a name for it. It's like Voronori or something like that. I remember seeing this, and you can do a D3 visualization and just like randomly have it
polygons.
randomly generate the shapes, but they are reflective of the data. And then it tries to stack it, which is probably why there's no way that you can get the German ones to be near each other with this type of visualization.
Yeah.
Unless you use Photoshop or something, I'm sure. Over the top, definitely.
Yeah, pretty.
I think because their point isn't for you to like visually understand what each of these like numerical values are. Like for me, comparing the 6% and the 28%, or the 7 and the 6%, like I wouldn't have thought that Berlin and New York City, or .Berlin and .New York City, were only like 1 to 2% difference visually, but I don't think that's the main point that they're trying to get across, so I can cope with that.
Frederick's saying the purple ones seem like it's Europe, which makes sense.
Yeah. Dark versus light. Is it like east versus what? I don't know. I don't know my European geography too well, apparently.
And he's saying he votes for this chart to be the next Vizlib release. We'll talk to Laren about that.
I would not say this is good business visualization. This does look like something that I'd find on Visual Capitalist, though. It reminds me they do a lot of like analysis of like oil companies that are kind of very similar geometric.
Yeah. Pretty chart.
Is there a better chart that you would have used, Jane?
No, I think just for like educational purposes, maybe a bar chart. But yeah, I don't think there's any other charts that would represent this better than a bar chart.
If you had it over time, there's those race charts, like who's in the pole position type of thing. So it could be Tokyo started out, lower, and then it just keeps building, and then it's first ranked, or it's the top position. Those are interesting and show the story, because I'm sure this is not correct now. It was taken at a snapshot in time, right? There's way more websites out there, probably in the last hour than at the beginning of the hour. So you'd want to see how these have changed. And maybe like Amsterdam's really taken off for some reason. Everybody wants a .Amsterdam website.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just noticed created in 2012.
2012. Oh yeah. Those might not even exist anymore.
Cool.
Yeah, I have one, Jane, that's fruits, and it's a bad chart, I would say. Let's see if we'll pull this one in here. I might need to zoom in, but I wanted to show the full view first. So which fruits and when are they in season? So it's got that on the edges here. And since we're in spring, maybe we'll zoom in there a little bit. And whatever this, radial chart thing is, it's kind of telling you for the months and the season, which of these things are growing are in season. So if it's pointing out to this one, I think that's watermelon and rhubarb is this second line that's inside, is available in the summer, spring, maybe even year round. I don't know if it has to dip around here. But I tried to find something like Jane, we talked about like when avocado were in season, if you can get them. And it's a spring thing. It's according to this is when it's most available.
Okay.
But that light green for avocado is kind of near the center, and it's available for a good chunk of the year, it looks like. But it's really hard to get it in October, November, December, January, February. At first, I didn't like it at all. And then as I started reading it, again, this is one I think is good as like a poster.
Yeah, great poster chart. Someone who's into fruit. I like fruits.
Yeah, maybe interactive, right? You hover over it and it's really tough there's too many colors going on.
Yeah.
But maybe you want to, what's this orange one? And it just highlights the word or something for you. It would be really cool.
I'm a little confused, like at the levels, like why did they choose to put two fruits on the same ring? Or that part's bothering me.
If I made any changes to this, I might have the seasons, the borders kind of keep going out, so you can actually see, where like spring and summer ends and everything.
The quadrants.
Yeah, you can kind of see the quadrants better.
That's a good idea.
And the colors. I don't understand the colors.
I think they're supposed to represent the fruit or the most common color of the fruit. But it doesn't really help. There's too much going on. This is just like the like cornucopia with every fruit in there. Wow, it's a lot of colors. Anything from you guys, Emily, Cody, on this one?
I think my other comment on this one would be like direct labels, like blowing up the visualization a little bit and having the labels directly on the rings that they represent would be so much more helpful than all the lines everywhere. I'm really struggling with the year-round ones too.
And after first seeing Cody's, I didn't know that he had that one with the flowers and when they bloom. I almost want to see it on that type of grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a lot more legible. And then you could say, wow, you could really quickly scan that and say like avocado is available for 3/4 of the year.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get cherries, but for a little bit of it.
Speaking of cherries and blooming, should we move on to Cody's next one? Because it has to do with cherries and blooming.
All right, go ahead.
Subtle transition.
Yes.
All right, yeah. So this is DC's Cherry Blossom Peaks. It starts in 1921 all the way through 2017. So the trend line here, which I found interesting, is actually going down. But peak line for all years is the trend line, and obviously the line chart here is the peak for each year. So I didn't mind this one. I think maybe it's an interactive one would be better here because it is a lot of dates over a big time. So I thought maybe breaking it down into a bigger chunk of years and then filtering down into a smaller chunk might be a little bit easier to read. I did find it interesting that the peak bloom day has gone down, though. I figure if you're going to extrapolate that out till the end of time, eventually that'll just get down to 0.
Does
it's the range you take it though, right? So if we go back to 1921, it's gonna be far different than if you did it from like the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe it would even be trending upwards.
I worry, Cody, about the conclusion you're drawing there. Because look at the R squared.
Where am I?
0.019. I don't know that that's statistically relevant conclusion.
That's true.
I think it's misleading that they're saying that the peak bloom day is actually decreasing, especially if you look at like the recent data and how skewed it is. I don't know. I'm concerned about that.
What does bloom day mean? Is it the day of the year that the flowers bloom?
I think so. Yeah.
That's how I took it.
So it's blooming earlier and earlier.
Might actually be better to have it say, March 1st, April 1st, May 1st, these types of things on the side instead of, I don't really count. How many days into the year are we right now? I don't really know. Doing math to do that.
Yeah, the conversion would be helpful for sure.
How would you guys feel if like a temperature, if they had another line chart that was kind of the temperature and you could see
really like that.
It match up? Yeah.
Because you have to assume that some of these dips are like the early spring, like got really warm really fast.
Because when did we go to DC? Was that March or April? It was end
March,
of March.
peak bloom season. Yeah.
So that was what, 90 days? Yeah, so we were probably on the lower scale.
So it's come back down a little bit from that. Maybe. Or we might be at a peak too. We don't really know because we only have up to 2017.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. Very springy.
Definitely.
Overall, I thought it was okay chart. It doesn't start at 0 scale, which I know we all know how we feel about that. But like all the values in there are relatively structured in a way that it doesn't throw off really any of the data. It doesn't skew it one way or another. So I didn't think it was too big of a deal for this one.
It would be neat to have it overlaid with like if they have raw tourist numbers in DC and like it's a lot more familiar. I don't remember hearing about it when I was a kid, but maybe I'm just paying attention more to now stuff. Well, I'm like, I'm gonna go to that.
I say this would be a good chart if you could forecast out the next peak day a year in advance. We know Emily knows from booking hotel rates. As soon as they came out with a bloom date, the hotel rates skyrocketed in the area. So you got to book it and forecast it before the bloom date comes out. And then you'll probably save a couple $100 a night.
It's true. good tip and technique.
Doesn't look very forecastable with a
not with that one, right?
Cool. Emily, do you have one last chart to show us?
I do.
Yes. Okay. Let me pull that up.
Okay, so I have been loving reading data sketches, and this is Shirley Wu's project that she did for one of those. So I guess like overarchingly, they do some like really complex data visualizations, and they've got like a whole story that they put together in their book about how they created it and how they came across like the design ideas and inspiration and like the evolution of the design. But this is one that has just been like very visually pleasing, and she makes like washi tape out of the flower designs and things like that. And so I wanted to show it because I love flowers in the springtime. And so I thought it was really cool how she used the different elements of the flower to represent different parts of the data set. And I also thought it was so interesting that she chose flowers for the data set. So it's films, and she's actually looking at top summer blockbusters reimagined as flowers. So this is like ones that she has seen, and then she's looking at like what are the ratings, from a scale of 3.7 out of 10 up to a 9 out of 10. And the votes would be like equivalent to the number of petals that you see. And then the colors represent the different genres. And then the rating is the different shape of the petals. So you get a lot of information just by looking at like okay, the Legend of Tarzan, we see like this beautiful flower, but the data is all kind of like hidden in there, you know? So I wanted to know what you guys thought of this type of visual artwork.
Can you zoom in a bit on it? It's a little small. I don't know if it looks like it could be zoomed in on. Yeah. It's like all that, it's codified. They created a new visualization for it, right?
Yeah.
So if you start understanding it, you see where this comes through. It's really cool.
Do the colors mean something?
Yes. This is one where you're like, okay, I always have to go back up to see the legend.
Is it an action comedy or a drama adventure? They mix those things together.
Okay, so then rating, and then the IMBD votes, and the ratings. Okay.
Some more petals, and then the overall size.
So the bigger the flower, the better the rating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it said somewhere in the book what the
Leaves meant?
leaves meant, but I don't see it
Oh yeah,
here
the
on the
rating.
website.
It's right at the top, I think.
Is it?
G, PG, PG-13, and R.
No, the leaves. See how this one has two
Oh.
leaves on it?
Maybe
If
it's
it's surrounded
Grammys,
something.
or not Grammys.
Oh, like
Oscars?
awards. Yeah.
Awards.
Cool.
I'm totally guessing though.
Are there any with more? Oh, what's it take you to?
Oh, it's bringing me to the trailer. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, but some have two, some have only one. So I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Brave Ted. Huh. That is interesting. And it doesn't go past 2.
But some of them, they are scaled to the size of the overall flower though too. So it's not like they got a bigger award or something.
I'm not sure it's an award, because did Cars 2 win any awards?
Might have gotten like best animated, something like technique wise. Those types of ones that they gloss over at the award shows.
Transformer.
But it seems like there's probably, who's had to watch like a best picture from one of the years right in here and see.
Mm. I think like for me, part of looking at, this isn't data that we're trying to like compare across all of these different dimensions, the year and the movie. We are almost looking at each individual movie as a story and like learning about that story in this like really interesting visual. And so I thought it was a really cool and creative use of data visualization, where the meaning is more of like I said, these little pockets of stories than like some like picturing like Vizlib tiles where you're like trying to compare some dimension over another dimension. And and I think she also did a really good job of choosing which elements that she was using to represent different things. So for example, the one thing that I might want to look at over the course of the years is maybe the rating, or what did she use for the size? The number of votes, I think. So like the ones that you might want to compare over time, they're much more like easy to compare visually, whereas the color representing the genre, that's not really something that I want to compare across all of them. It's just something that like enhances that individual story. And so I think that she did a really good job of picking out which elements she was using to represent which item in the flower. So I thought
it's a bit of her story too, right? Because she said these are movies that she watched.
Yeah.
So there could be like, she was watching lots of comedies for a while, and then it's getting like redder, so she's watching more dramas and stuff. I think it's just really reflective of her.
Wow.
Isn't it? I was thinking tiles as well would be a way we could kind of create this with conditional shows on each little graphic, and then coloring in things. It might take a while again.
Maybe have it flip to how she rates everything. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this is great.
So nice, fun way to end. Not a typical visualization that we show on
Yeah.
Appy Hour.
Cool. Awesome stuff.
Great. Thanks, guys, and thanks our audience thank you audience for joining. I know we're running a little bit over, so cheers, guys, and thank you
Cheers.
for
I made it about
Happy Hour.
halfway through the kombucha, and it's not terrible. Cheers.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye all.